Howdy everyone, Frank DiMora here, the author of the book, The Last Chronicles of Planet Earth, which you can get at my website today for free. That's a free download for you. And I'm going to be connecting the dots between current events and Bible prophecy like I normally do. So let's get right into it. Today is January the 21st, 2014. I'm going to start off with Daniel chapter 2 because Daniel chapter 2 gives us an insight about the world empires from the time that Daniel was alive all the way until the second coming of Jesus Christ. And he told us who was going to be in power at the time that Jesus would return. And so, since we're in that last generation, it should be very important to you to look at the people that the Lord pointed out to that were going to be in power when he came back the second time. So you'll see in a figure here, this was taken, we just made a figure here to show you what the vision of Daniel had, the interpretation of an actual dream that Nebuchadnezzar had, the king of Babylon. And so Daniel, the prophet, told the king exactly what he saw because God told him what that dream meant, or what he was dreaming about. So we know that, in short, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but God showed him every empire that was going to be a world empire that would defeat the next world empire all the way until the return of Jesus. So we saw Babylon, that happened. Medo-Persian, that happened, took over the Babylonian Empire. Greece took over the Medo-Persian Empire. And then Rome, and of course there was the western and eastern leg of the Roman Empire. And this is what I'm going to be centering on because we're in the last days and we're coming down to the last part of this figure, the 10 toes, the kings, if you will, that Jesus shows us in the last days. There will be 10 kings. They're going to give all their power over to this one person that we know of as the Antichrist, and he's going to rule the world as the last revived Roman Empire. So knowing that there were two parts of this old Roman Empire, and we see the merging of both the west and the eastern parts of these old Roman Empire, it should become important news to you. So let me break this down for you. Take a look at this. This is, of course, the prophecy sign, and you'll see that the last part of the Roman Empire that used to one time exist, it's back already, and it's growing. But let me just go on and read this. This week, major developments have been taking place to bring into focus who the revived Roman Empire is and where the Antichrist is going to rise up from. Now let us look at what the 7 heads may mean, which come from Revelation chapter 17, verse 7. This is important. I put it different colors so that you'll see exactly what I'm showing you here. In Revelation chapter 17, verse 9, the angel begins to tell John the meaning of the 7 heads, and this is important. Here in verse 9, the angel says, "They are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth." Now, just so that you know, the woman is this false church, if you will. And this false church will be riding on the beast, who is the Antichrist, a symbology there. But it's a real false church riding along the power of a real Antichrist who will be coming. Now, in Revelation 17:10, we are also told that there are 7 kings. And I'm going to quote this for you. Take a look at this. And there are 7 kings. This is what Jesus is telling us. 5 are fallen, and 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. Now, this next verse is very important to keep this in mind. And again, I'm going to quote this. "And the beast that was, and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7th, and goeth into perdition." So Revelation, obviously, 17:11. Now, the 7 mountains here refers to kingdoms or governments. There's no question about that. You don't have to do any research about that. We know that that was made very clear to us in the scriptures. The kings, of course, are rulers of these kingdoms. In this case, the 7 kings rule the 7 kingdoms, obviously. All right? So, going back here, there are 7 kings. Well, we're going to take a look at these 7 kings. Now, I went through this before many times, but for the new people who may not have seen this, you may not know what the Lord was talking about. So we know that there are going to be these kingdoms ruled. You see here the 10 horns, which thou sawest, are 10 kings. All right? Very plainly, that's what the Lord tells us to look for. So when you look at past history, you'll see that Egypt was one. You can count them as one horn. The Assyrian, 2, then you have the Babylonian, you have the Medo-Persian, and you have the Greece, which broke down into 4 different kingdoms after Alexander the Great died. And then you have Rome, and then you have this Turkish Ottoman Empire that came out later. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 horns. So we have the horns there. What about the 7 that the Lord talks about? Well, when we look at the scriptures, let me go back to my site now. So let's take a look. When John was writing the revelation that Jesus gave to him, he was obviously in this area here, which would have been the Roman Empire, because it was already existing. So you had Rome, 5 had already passed. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of those kingdoms have already passed. 1 is, and of course there was another one to come, and that was the Turkish Ottoman Empire, which it did come. Now, according to the prophecy, it says, and the beast that was is not. So if you take a look and you see the Turkish government, and it was part in the past, obviously, and it comes back and becomes the 8th and actually was part of the 7, you could see how the Turkish Ottoman Empire could be the 8th kingdom that the Lord talks about that will come in, this revived Roman Empire, because obviously you had the eastern leg of the old Roman Empire. I hope you see that very clearly. Now, because we know that the Ottoman Empire was involved in the old Roman Empire, and because he was part of the 7th, if he comes back and he's the 8th, then you would have the fulfillment and the beast that was, and he is not, obviously, if he was gone after he rose, which they did and they fell, but if he comes back, then it would definitely fulfill even he is the 8th. And you should see that very clearly now. You can freeze the frame if you want and count the horns if you want and count it through history. The 5 kingdoms that already had passed when John was writing the scriptures for us, because of what Jesus told us, all this evidence becomes very, very clear. So knowing about Turkey, that's the important part. Let's look at Turkey, because obviously they were in the old Roman Empire. They were here at one point, and if they rise again, certainly it could be very, very significant. So before I go any further, I want to show you some important news that maybe you didn't see before, but it has to do with the Ottoman Empire. Keep in mind that they were here, and now they're gone. But take a look. Now we're in our generation. We'll go right over to their website. Take a look at this. This news came out in 2011. It says, Turkey wants to revive the Ottoman Empire. So here we have the possibility, obviously, of this 8th kingdom that the Lord talks about in Revelation. Now this is why I'm really watching what's going on with the Ottoman Empire. It says 100 years after the collapse of the Ottoman Empire, Turkey is re-emerging on the international arena. Furthermore, it intends to regain the ground lost in the 19th and 20th centuries, which is a direct threat to the interest of all the neighboring countries, including Russia. Consider the actions of the Turkish leadership during the past weeks that have caused serious concerns in Israel, Syria, Iraq, Iran, and the EU. So, what we have here is the merging, coming out of. Now, if the Roman Empire is coming out, which they have been, now keep in mind, this was back in 2011, and the Roman Empire, the emergence of the 8th, certainly looks like it's emerging, as I'm going to show you here. Because, take a look at this, it's talking about the EU, the European Union, the western part of the old Roman Empire. So you would have the Ottoman Empire, which is the eastern part of the eastern old Roman Empire, coming together with the western part of the old Roman Empire. And this is why a lot of people think, including me, that there is a great possibility that the Antichrist could be this Muslim person that will rise out of the Roman Empire. So let me go back over to my site. We'll connect the dots for you. But this is really, really important. Turkey wants to revive the Ottoman Empire because it flows directly as what we see in the scriptures. All right, so here we are. We just covered the Ottoman Empire there, the news of 2011. Now let's go into the news. This is current news now. Take a look at this. You see the Turkish flag with the European Union. It says Turkey, the PM Erdogan gives the new push to EU membership bid. So can you see what I'm seeing here? This is amazing news. Now keep in mind, before I even go any farther into this article, I want to bring down another prophecy as well, Ezekiel chapter 38. Because when you look at Ezekiel chapter 38, this is a war against Israel, you will see that Turkey, Beth Togarmah, is right here. They're part of a huge force, these Islamic force, that will be coming with Russia, who will be leading this war against Israel. But that's very, very important. Turkey right here. All right. So let's take a look at the Turkish Empire, how it's reviving, trying to make its way into the western side of the old Roman Empire. Let's go to the article. Obviously, you're looking at the BBC News, and today is January the 21st, 2014. Turkey PM Erdogan gives new push to EU membership bid. Now, what I'm going to do is go down to what I believe is the meat of the material right here. Let me get to it. And you see now, the EU, they have certain things, criteria that nations have to meet before they can enter into the European Union to become a member. And Turkey has been working to get these requirements fulfilled. So let's take a look over here. It says there are 35 policy areas or chapters in which candidate states must meet EU standards in order to join the 28-member bloc. And so far, Turkey and the EU have only opened 14 chapters, and just one has been previously closed. So 8 chapters remain closed because of long-running trade dispute between Turkey and Cyprus. Now, take a look at this. It says Turkey's accession talks resume in November. After being suspended for nearly 3.5 years, the negotiators were launched in 2005. However, several EU countries, notably Germany, France, Austria, have deep reservations about Turkey's joining the EU. Critics believe that it is crucially far removed from Europe, and because of its sheer size, it could change the nature of the EU, which obviously it would. Now, when you go down in here, you will see Mr. Erdogan's trip to Brussels is his first in 5 years. And he will meet with the European Council President Herman Van Rompuy, who chairs EU summits, and EU Commissioner President Jose Manuel Barroso. The BBC's James Reynolds in Istanbul says that Turkey's government is fed up with the slow pace of membership talks and wants a formal timetable for accession. In other words, he wants to speed it up. He wants to go through the process and get this done. So obviously there has been a slow process, but the fact of the matter is they're talking, they're going through these different chapters, working things out, and this is something that we should be looking for, because it is the resurrection of one of the 7, if you will, that the Lord shows us in, or could be, from the Revelation chapter 17. Very, very interesting developments that are taking place, considering you're dealing with the revived Roman Empire, which is already here, actually both legs. So if they're coming together, you know that there is that possibility that we're looking at the beginning stages of the fulfillment of the revelation that will bring out the Antichrist. All right, so let's move on here. Remember, we were talking about Ezekiel chapter 38. We'll take a look at 38 because there's Turkey. We already mentioned that, and now we're going to be dealing a little bit with Iran because they are another one of the nations that are becoming against Israel. So you could see the list of the people who are going to attack Israel, but also in Ezekiel we see nations who will not be attacking Israel, and those nations are also in the news. So let me turn to Ezekiel chapter 38, verse 13. And of course, I'm reading from, this will be from the King James. You'll see it says Sheba and Dedan. This is actually Saudi Arabia, Old Testament names for Saudi Arabia. Sheba and Dedan, the merchants of Tarshish, with all the young lions thereof, shall say unto thee, art thou come to take a spoil? In other words, they're watching this massive Islamic army coming down, and they're saying, oh my gosh, man, what are they doing? They coming down to take a spoil from Israel? No doubt, that's what they're going to be saying. Hast thou gathered thy company to take a prey, to carry away the silver and the gold, to take away cattle and goods, to take a great spoil? And if you know anything about Israel, they do have a great spoil, very rich country. So let's take a look at it, breaking it down for you, making it really easy to understand. Ezekiel chapter 38, verse 13, which we were just read to you. And what I did is put in a little bit of pictures so that you get it visually for you. So it says this. It tells us that Great Britain, which is Tarshish in the Old Testament, is known as the lion. Very significant, by the way. And the United States, Canada, and Australia, which are the young lions, a break-off of the main lions. In other words, the break-off of Tarshish, or Great Britain, which their insignia happens to be a lion. So when we see these things in the Scriptures, you can connect them and know that God just didn't throw things in there for no reason. He gave us some important information that a lot of people will miss. So let's continue. So we have the main lion, Tarshish, are in the area of Saudi Arabia, which again, as I showed you, was Sheba and Dedan, which is known as, here we go, Sheba and Dedan at the time the attack against Israel breaks out. So why am I giving this to you? Well, obviously, if you look and you see who is not involved in the war against Israel, you'll see that none of those nations are in here. So that means they're allied in some way, or they're at least friends with Israel. So let's take a look now, because we're going to go to Canada's news, and you can see that Harper, the Prime Minister of Canada, important news. Support for Israel is morally and strategically right. I'm going to give you a few of his articles, or the articles that were written about his trip over there, and you'll see another one of these. Harper tells Israel, through fire and water, Canada will stand with you. Now, I'm not going to read or go over to the sites. I have the links. If you're at my YouTube channel, you can go to my link at my actual site, and you'll be able to click the link and read all the information. Really interesting information, but it shows you the very nations that are mentioned in the Scriptures. Either they are coming against Israel or they're friends, and you see it in the news. So it makes sense. Here's another one. Former Canadian minister shocked by the visit to the Temple Mount. Stockwell Day, a former Canadian minister who visited the Temple Mount, was shocked to see the discrimination towards the Jews. And this is an article that pertains to the Temple Mount, because the Jews want to build their third temple on the Temple Mount area where the Dome of the Rock is, which is the third most holiest site for the Muslims. And the Muslims were able to control or to run this facility up there since the 1967 war, but now the Israelis, the Jews, want this area in their hands so that their people, the Jews, can also have full access to the Temple Mount area so that they can pray just like the Islamic people are doing at their Dome of the Rock. And so the Canadian ex-prime minister was over there, and he saw the discrimination against this. But one thing that you should know, and obviously the prime minister, ex-prime minister, should know this as well. This area, the Temple Mount, is going to be obviously fulfilling Scripture soon. And what do I mean by that? Well, we see in Thessalonians, Paul was writing to the church, and he was showing us that the Antichrist was going to put his figure in that temple that's going to be rebuilt. So we know shortly, and I can't tell you how short, but we do know the Jews are going to have full access to that Temple Mount area. And they are going to build their temple, and they're going to worship They're going to start the sacrifices again, and then the Antichrist is going to obviously destroy or stop those sacrifices exactly 3.5 years after they build the temple, and tell everybody that he is God. But here's the most important part. The Canadians are with Israel. We see them in Ezekiel chapter 38. We do not see them attacking Israel in the last days. And the other part, which is very important, don't be upset, ex-prime minister, because Israel, unfortunately, is going to get their wish. And what I mean unfortunately is because the Jews don't believe the Messiah, Jesus Christ, is their Messiah. And so they're going to have to learn the hard way. And part of the hard way to learn is to have the temple rebuilt, to start their sacrifices, and then eventually find out that the person that they trusted, this Antichrist person, turned out to be the devil's advocate. And this is not a good situation for the Jews, but the end result, that's what is in my heart. That's what should be in the heart of all the Christians. The end result is that when Christ comes back, the people will know, the Jews will know, that their Messiah has always been Jesus Christ. And the one that they persecuted and the one that they put on the cross was, in fact, their Messiah. And they missed all the scriptures and all the prophecies of his first coming. They were blinded. And, of course, we know that all that's going to change in the future. So let's move on now to Romania. Romania, look at this. The Palestinians should recognize Israel as a Jewish state. Do you see Romania in this list? No, you don't. So you're seeing the positions being taken that are going to be supporting or coming against Israel. And this is why I wanted to point this news out to you. Romanian president, military cooperation with Israel to continue, which is a good thing. We know it's a good thing because anybody that blesses Israel will be blessed, and anybody that curses Israel will be cursed. Just read Genesis chapter 12. You'll be able to see the curse scriptures there. All right, so moving on. Netanyahu doesn't back down, slams Obama's nuke deal with Iran. Well, this has to do, again, with Israel trying to get the world to stop Iran from building this bomb. And, of course, they're continuing to build the bomb. Barack Obama is allowing them to do it, obviously. He hasn't done anything about it. He won't do anything about it. And this is where Netanyahu steps in and he says he's not going to back down. So there's going to be a day when Benjamin Netanyahu is going to have to do something if no one else does, and that will be an attack on Iran. And when that happens, then what happens? Well, you have the prelude to the Psalm 83 war and obviously Ezekiel chapter 38 war, of which Iran will be one of the major components. Let me go to it. Major component in the attack against Israel in the Ezekiel war. Again, Russia will lead this war. So here's another article about that. It says Geneva deal doesn't stop Iran's bid for a bomb. And all this is going to show us is that it's the time period for Israel to do something is coming up. Now, a lot of people think because there's the 4 blood moons that are going to show up soon, and the first one begins in April of this year, that there's a possibility the war may break out during one of the first blood moon. I can't tell you for sure, but it's something that we should consider and keep on the watch for, because we do know that these wars that haven't been fulfilled are definitely coming. Now, here's a poll that was taken by 2/3 of the Israelis. They think Obama will let Iran go nuclear. You better believe it. I've been saying that for a very long time. As a matter of fact, take a look at the president's record. He's been in office complete 4-year administration already, and he's already been into another year. So that's 5 years of allowing the Iranians to produce a bomb. And I can assure you that Barack Obama is not going to go in their military to try to destroy it. Israel will have to do that. You'll see that in the news. Senior U.S. officials visiting Jerusalem allay Israeli fears over Iran plan. There's nothing that the Americans, the leadership, is going to be able to say to Israel to halt their attack on Iran. Because if Israel, and the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel has already stated, if nobody else does anything, they're going to act. And they will act alone. They know that they would have to act alone, because if they didn't, their survival would be destroyed by an attack of the Iranians if they used a dirty bomb or a nuclear weapon against them. So Israel's going to have to make a move. And of course, all this goes to peace and safety, the call for peace and safety. The wars are going to happen when Israel's calling for peace and safety. You could see it right there in the scriptures, 1 Thessalonians 5:3. For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. So it doesn't say that there's going to be peace. It says sudden destruction. The Lord made it very clear. So we're seeing the time go fast. I mean, I've never seen so many prophecies take place in such a short period of time. Now, concerning the peace talks, here we go. Netanyahu to travel to Davos to meet with Kerry. So John Kerry has been trying to divide up the land. He is working hard. I think this will be his 11th or his 12th visit to try to divide up the nation of Israel. Again, watch what happens to the United States. Because the United States is under the curse. Anybody who tries to divide up Israel is under the curse. Read Joel chapter 3 verse 2. Where the Lord promised there, anybody who, departs my land, he's going to lead him to the valley of Jehoshaphat, which is destruction. And if you read my book, you're going to see all of this information of the curse that falls on the nations who come against Israel and try to divide their land. So again, dealing with the peace talks, dealing with the Palestinians, you'll see their flag there. It says Abbas to Harper, which is the Canadian. There will be no Israelis in Palestine. In other words, take a look at this, because the talk here, when you get into the article, you'll see that the gesture is he's going to wipe out Israel. They're going to overtake Jerusalem. And that is exactly what we're reading in Psalm 83, where the Palestinians, the Phoenicians, their Old Testament name, the Phoenicians, are going to unite with all of these other bordering nations, and they're going to try to wipe out Israel. It's not going to happen, obviously. Israel's not going to be wiped out. But the reason why I'm showing you this, and I'm going to let you read the whole article, but I'm just giving you what's in the article. You'll see that. But this news is pointing to the exact same prophecies that the Lord told us that were coming, and we should be on guard and looking for them. Now, if you have been to my website, if you have been to my live presentations, or if you read my book, you'll know that I've been giving you different reasons why the peace talks are going to fail. Now, I think a month ago, I listed 5 of those things that someone had put up. It was a news article that I posted, and there were 5 main reasons why the peace talks weren't going anywhere, and I showed you what I said, and I showed you what this news article said, and they were almost identical. Now, 2 of the top 2 reasons. Number 1 was the ownership of East Jerusalem, and one of the other problems was the 1967 borders. In other words, the Palestinians wanted that area back. And then the third would be construction of new homes in territory that the Palestinians thought that there was their land. So it really ticked them off. And here we go. I told you that Benjamin Netanyahu was not going to stop building in any place that he wanted to build. Here's another example of that. You'll see it. Israel plans 381 new houses in the Samaria town. So you read the article. I just wanted to connect the dots for you, because what I'm showing you are the reasons why there will be no peace in the Middle East. Not anytime soon. There's going to be war. These are the reasons why that war is going to come. Now, I've been warning for years. The Palestinians, the Hamas, the Hezbollah, the same people that are mentioned in Psalm 83 will not stop sending these rockets and missiles into Israel. They're enemies of Israel. They're sitting down negotiating land, but they don't ever want to be friends with Israel. And I've been telling you over and over again, they're never going to stop sending these rockets trying to kill the Israelis. Well, obviously, my warnings are correct. Look at this. Last week I showed you how many missiles and rockets were going over. We're in the new week. 2 rockets fired from Sinai towards the Elat and no injuries reported. Look at this. Sinai Salafists claim rocket fire in Elat. Different articles that will give you a little bit different information, but I'm connecting the meat of the material for you. And as I said, I'll give you the links. Israel will be hard-pressed to respond to Sinai rocket attack. And you know that if you've been at my site, I told you, look, if they're going to send rockets into Israel, you can count on Israel to send in their troops or to send in their jets and to wipe out the people who are doing this. And all this does is cause more friction, more intensity, not only in the Middle East, but around the world, as the rest of the world sees that Third World War could start in the Middle East area over these nations. And here's one: continued increase in rocket fire would demand solution. And of course, Netanyahu warns Hamas of harsh Israeli response if rocket attacks don't stop. Well, so let me tell you, they're not going to stop. And you will see in the news shortly, Israel is doing exactly what you see in this picture here. They're sending in and they're firing on the areas that are coming against the Jews. And obviously this isn't any good for the peace process whatsoever. Because you cannot sit down at a table with somebody who won't recognize you as a people, won't recognize you as a nation, and is still, since he's the head of these people, and the rockets are firing into Egypt or into Israel, he is responsible for it. So you can't sit down with somebody who's trying to kill your people. Here we go. Report released: Islamic terrorist attacks against Israel doubled in 2013. My warnings are coming to pass only because I know the future, because Jesus has spoken it in his word. It's written to us in the Bible about things, events, certain specific events that are going to happen. So if you link them together and you're watching the news, obviously you're going to see those very things take place. Now, one of the other things that are taking place: Christian persecution. Over the last couple of years, it's really getting bad, worse. And Matthew 24:9 tells us, and then they shall deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and you shall be hated of all the nations for my name's sake. And of course, in the Revelation chapter 6, verse 9. And when he had opened the 5th seal, I saw under the altars the souls of them that were slain for the word of God and for the testimony which they held. So obviously there are going to be people who we have spoken to now in the age of grace, the church age. And these people, a lot of them, will reject God's message, reject Jesus, and reject what he did on the cross, reject the resurrection. And these people will be left behind when the church is taken out of the way. And then after the church is gone, when they see that what we told them came to pass, many of these people will turn to God. They will become Christians. They will be the saints of the tribulation period. There's many saints. There were the saints when John, the apostles were alive. They were saints. They were saints. There were saints during the persecution of the early church. There's going to be saints, obviously, right now. Anybody who received Jesus, we are the saints. And then when the church is gone, there will be other saints, but there will be tribulation saints. And these tribulation saints, many of them, are going to be martyred for the Lord as they refuse to take the mark of the beast and bow down to him. So the persecution is coming. It's going to get worse. It's not going to get better. Jesus told us in Mark 13:8. He likened it to birth pains. We're in those birth pains. So even the persecution is going to get much worse. Here's the news. Confirmed U.S. chief facilitator of the Christian persecution. According to the recently released 2014 World Watch list, which ranks the 50 nations where Christians are most persecuted. Syria is the third worst nation in the world in which to be Christian. Iraq is the fourth, Afghanistan the fifth, Libya the 13th. All four countries received the strongest designation, extreme persecution. Other designations are severe, moderate, and sparse persecution. Aside from being so closely and harshly ranked, these four nations have something else in common: heavy U.S. involvement. So, does it... Look at... I wish I can give you more news that is a lot better. But when you read the Olivet of Discord and what Jesus said to look for just before he comes back, it isn't good. The good part about it is when Jesus does come back. That's the good part. And then the real good part is if you receive Jesus Christ as your Savior now during the age of grace, you're sealed into the kingdom. God brings you in. You're His child. And when the time is right, when He calls the church, you'll be gone. So you wouldn't have to worry about what's going to take place during the tribulation. You wouldn't have to worry about facing the Antichrist or the persecution in the last days where you're confronted whether you take that mark or not, because you'll be in heaven. Now, Revelation 9:21. This is a prophecy that shows you specifically about the last days generation. We are called the drug generation. All right? Revelation 9:21. And we see Jesus speaking to us about drugs. The words magic arts in Revelation 9:21 is the Greek word for pharmakeia, which comes from the word pharmacy. It signifies the use of medicines, drugs, spells, such as those used in witchcraft and those used today by those who are seeking a greater high. This generation was and to be labeled the drug generation, and we are, without a question. So let me just give you a little bit of an update on what's going on. There's so much news around the world about this, but I just picked this up today. Vietnam sentenced 30 heroin smugglers to death in the biggest drugs trial. It says 30 men and women. All Vietnamese were found guilty of drug trafficking and given a death penalty, while further 59 defendants were handed sentences ranging from life to prison of presiding judge. So what we have, just more news, and this is not, obviously, if you've been following the news, this kind of problem, drugs, it's not just in Vietnam. United States is loaded with it. Mexico, even worse. Europe, laws are changing in many different nations, allowing freer access to drugs. Like the United States, for example, recreational smoking pot is the new fad now, and you'll see it migrating from state to state. These are the specific signs of the last days, the drug generation. We are that drug generation, no question. Now, one of the other prophecies the Lord told us to look for is pestilence, among all the rest of the prophecies that were going to happen in the same time. Now, my book is loaded with these kind of prophecies, but I just wanted to give this to you. China reports 2 deaths of the H7N9 avian flu. And the authorities are worried about this flu eventually just becoming pandemic. And one of the reasons why is we're starting to see around many places around the world that antibiotics are not working against these things. And not only that, but we're seeing a jumping from these diseases from humans to animals, animals to humans, and only God knows how bad it's going to get. But we do know that's one of the signs, and we do know that in the tribulation, these signs, all of these signs are going to max out. They're going to get real, real bad. You don't want to be around for that. So let me go up here. And again, if you just found my site and you don't know Jesus Christ, please, all I'm asking you is this. Take the challenge. Go to my site. Scroll down and you can click the link right here. Last Chronicles of Planet Earth, January 20th, 2014 edition. When you read this book, you will see page after page of documentation showing you that the very things, specific things, not general, specific events that the Lord told us to look for, and you'll see them happen, they've already happened. And since those things have already come to pass, we know that the rest is going to follow, and it's happening quicker and quicker because we are in the midst of the birth pains. This is Frank DiMora saying thank you, God bless you, and please, the best thing that you can do today is accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and personal Savior. Call Him, talk to Him. He'll listen to you. He'll respond. If you pledge your soul to Christ and ask Him to renew you, He's going to do it. Let me know if you commit your life to Jesus, and I'll pray for you. God bless.